Ready? Boom.
All right.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us for today's episode of Trade the Chain. I'm going to do that again. Don't know if I was live. Thank you for joining us, everybody, for today's episode of Trade the Chain. It is Tuesday, May 25th. I hope everybody got a chance to see CJ and myself earlier on Digital Asset News Channel with Rob for Trinity Trading. That was fun. And do that again. I was live. Thank you for joining us, everybody. Oh, geez. Okay, but it was fun. There was some insightful calls made there. I'm looking forward to doing that show with CJ and Rob weekly. But here we are, joined by the best hair in crypto, no matter what you may say about CJ coming up to, challenge that title.
I'm hearing
look at the deep fade action.
Look at that.
And of course, we have CJ from marketrebellion.com. Monty has the day off. So let's just jump into it. All right, Brian, take it away, my man.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. This is just a reminder that all content provided by Trade the Chain and Market Rebellion is strictly for educational and informational purposes only. Absolutely none of this is investment advice. You should not listen to a word we say. Trade the Chain is brought to you by TradeTheChain.com, a global community of traders of all ages, all backgrounds, all abilities, and all using AI-driven sentiment indicators and actionable alerts to help them beat the market. If you too want to trade like a crypto insider, check out TradeTheChain.com.
And then moving over to marketrebellion.com/crypto. This is Monty and myself and our community at Market Rebellion. And with us, you get weekly trade insights with entries, exits, and stop losses, as well as access to our macro portfolio allocations, a pro charting platform, a trading education curriculum, and an elite community of traders all throughout the world, and much more. If you're serious about trading crypto, this is the service that gives you everything you need all in one place. And you start your first month trial for just $1 at marketrebellion.com/crypto. I mentioned an education curriculum, and we just added quite a bit to it these last couple days, this one being a moving average lesson. And of course, not to be confused with HEX, but DMI indicator as well. So I definitely encourage you guys to check those out. For just $1, you can get access. So that's marketrebellion.com/crypto. Gents, anything you want to lead off with here?
I'm curious to hear what you have to say today.
Before we get to that, just a reminder, everyone, we're going to be at Bitcoin 2021 next week in Miami. So we're looking forward to meeting everyone. Anyone attending, feel free to come up to us, ask any questions, and we'll be doing interviews live from the conference with project founders, other attendees, and what have you. So looking forward to that. Can't wait.
We're just going to grab people off the floor, just drag them on camera. Be like,
man on the street style.
That's going to be fun. So yeah, definitely I hope to see you there. I think that's sold out right now, if I'm not mistaken. So
12,000 tickets they said they sold in the latest update that they just sent out. 12,000 people. That's bigger than most towns in this.
I don't like people too much to begin with. I don't know if I can be in a room with 12,000 people.
I might just be hanging out at the bar.
Monty and I will be there as well. I'm sure we'll be hanging out in collaboration with Trade the Chain and doing some interviews. We got a booth there. I think you guys got one as well. So it's going to be a fun time. I'm pumped up. If any of you guys want to come meet us, I'd be more than happy to chat and show you some new features of the platform. But without further ado, why don't we check on the markets? Not a whole lot going on today. Kind of just hovering from where we were last night. Still fairly neutral on a lot of the sentiments overnight, at least in the short term. Average trading volume not doing a whole lot in terms of Bitcoin and Ethereum, but still some of these lower market cap coins doing some good volume. OXT, that's kind of interesting. Anyways, let's get to the main event, namely being Bitcoin, and let's analyze the trend. So this bullish engulfing candle that we got yesterday, very promising on the daily chart, but if you noticed, or if you watched yesterday's stream, a little bit of a clickbaity title in the sense that we said there would be one single indicator we were looking for bullish confirmation of this continued uptrend. And that is this red line here, the ADX. It essentially measures the strength of the current trend. We're in a downtrend currently, so it's measuring the strength of that. Previously, when we fell, in hindsight, this was a great buying opportunity, not only because of the bullish engulfing candle, but look at the ADX right here. Immediately, once we got that bullish engulfing candle, we had a peak in the ADX. And a peak tells you that that existing bearish trend is probably over. I mean, these peaks and troughs have been so accurate when it comes to determining when the trend is over or when we're beginning a new trend. You know, we had the bullish engulfing candle, as I mentioned, but if you look at the ADX and where we've kind of lined up ever since then, you'll notice that we really haven't peaked yet. And so although I think the bullish price action last night was incredibly promising, you know, I want to see something like this. I want to see a pretty firm and clear drop off in the ADX. We just haven't seen that yet. We've seen diminishing returns in terms of increase in the ADX, which is nice, but I still want to see it turn over ever so slightly, because that shows me the bears are seriously fleeing the scene, at least in the short term. We haven't seen that yet. I'm still bullish, but ultimately I'm kind of, you know, I want to see that for bullish confirmation, and we just haven't 100% gotten it yet.
I think I have your confirmation there, CJ. Glassnode data out this morning. The number of addresses in accumulation of Bitcoin has hit an all-time high for the 7th day in a row. So while price action might not necessarily be catching up to it yet, because this could also be an indication that there's a lot of people buying smaller amounts of Bitcoin, retail investors who might not be out pacing the bears. Over time, this is historically proven out to show that there will be a bull run in the near term, right? So when you have, what's the exact number here? 545,115 addresses in accumulation. It's only a matter of time until Bitcoin's price starts to appreciate even a little bit. So I think that sentiment, which has also rebounded and started to, go positive to a degree, I think those two things right there kind of confirm your technical analysis that Bitcoin is due for a bullish turnaround and to soon start the upward trend again.
Yeah, and touching on that Glassnode data, I'm glad you brought that up, because one thing I do want to share that was very popular on Twitter throughout this week is the transfers to OTC desks. And so I'm interested to hear your guys' thoughts on this. You as well, Alex, in the sense that we're looking at over-the-counter balances. This is the tweet, essentially. OTC desk outflows are the highest they've been the entire bull run, spiking at over at least the last 2 weeks. Safe to say that institutions are buying the dip. Do you guys agree with this or no?
I mean, as far as, listen, if anybody who's on the fence about thinking about entering positions into this market, I think this, obviously came at an opportunistic point, and this may have sealed the deal where they said, let's buy the dip, let's average down. So I do think that could be the case. But on the other hand, the devil side of me says, that if there were corporates on the fence, about coming into this, the volatility may have scared them off for the short term. So, I really don't have a concrete opinion on it one way or the other, because I think it can play both sides.
So some of the anecdotal evidence points to institutions buying. ARK Invest, I think they've had multiple $20 million buys into Bitcoin over the past week or so, buying that dip. We know MicroStrategy, they bought a significant amount of Bitcoin as well. And then, something I wanted to ask you about, CJ, there have been hundreds of millions of dollars worth of USDC minted over the past 24 hours, according to the whale alerts on Trade the Chain. Can you tell us a little bit about what that means and why that would be occurring, and how that relates to market activity?
And before you do that, CJ, Ryan brings up a great point. So folks, you need to, a great indicator of the market and trying to analyze what's happening is seeing those big market movements that happen on those whale alerts.
What was the question? I forgot after Alex started talking.
Alex, every time.
Something about OTC desks.
No, it was the hundreds of millions of dollars worth of
right.
BUSD minted over the past 24 hours or so.
Yeah, so a lot of people will say that in bull markets, because the amount of tether and like USDC stablecoin, pretty much, we can assume that they're used for the same purposes. We see the supply of those two cryptocurrencies growing in bull markets because the demand for them is growing. A lot of people will jump to conclusions and will say Bitcoin is only going up because it's artificially being printed and bought with tether. I don't think that's true, because we don't see tether being printed in mass in bear markets. We only see it when the demand actually flows in bull markets. And so to me, it's just an increase in demand and people who want to trade in the volume. Now, one kind of new thing that I think a lot of people don't realize that stablecoins are being used for is they're being used for institutions outside of crypto. In one particular case, I know a FX exchange known as SpotX, which is, they don't have any cryptocurrencies, but they've actually implemented stablecoins to be able to have one-day settlement for their particular traders on that various exchange. So stablecoins are even being used outside of crypto to a certain extent. So summing it up, one, I think it stands for increased demand in the overall market. And two, I think it's because people in the traditional financial world, as well as the banking world, are realizing the benefits of stablecoins when it comes to one-day settlement.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Listen, one of the things that, CJ, do you have anything more on Bitcoin? Because one of the things I really want to jump into is what Ryan brought up pre-show, which is, Ethereum in the DeFi markets and what's happening over there. The acceleration pointed out was greater than that of Bitcoin. So, Ryan, you want to take us down this rabbit hole?
Yeah. So, over the past 24 hours or so, Bitcoin and a handful of DeFi projects, Aave, Comp, what have you, their gains have been outpacing those seen in Bitcoin. And, there could be a number of reasons for that, but I think it points to something. I forget who Joe Weisenthal interviewed this morning on Bloomberg, but he was saying that the reason that DeFi projects are recovering faster is because there's actual real world utility in them, and people can use them, for the benefits of financial services. And they're 24 hours. They don't close at night. They're accessible to all. And that's why these projects are seeing a bit more traction. And of course, Ethereum would go up if DeFi projects do, because most of them are based on Ethereum. I think CJ is a little bit better at the technicals here, but that's the general feeling around them in the markets right now.
I also think that, it comes down to the classic search for yield. When you're an investor, you're a trader, or you're a fund manager, one of the things as the market shifts is your search for yield. And right now it's DeFi that is probably giving these investors, as they sit through this trough, the best returns right now. So I think that's all really valid points, Ryan. It's exciting to see the ecosystem working on its own to naturally settle things out.
When you look at, you're right, Alex, absolutely right. When you look at the liquidity pools on like Zero Exchange, they're offering hundreds of percentage points in yield, right? You're not going to get that in a savings account or in a money market or a CD or in treasuries. You get that in DeFi though. And there are, of course, a lot of risks inherent in investing in these liquidity pools. But overall, if people who have the stomach for them and they're able to understand the risks and they're willing to live with them, the returns are phenomenal. They're better than investing in the broader market in some cases.
Sure. Spot on.
I don't think the comparison with DeFi liquidity mining is fair when compared to just a bank account. Obviously, you don't get any interest in a bank account, but you have to actively manage a yield farming protocol and balance both of the values of the pairs in that order. and you have to protect yourself actively from impermanent loss, and not only be a good trader, but also be able to balance that liquidity pool. So
it's a full-time job, man.
I think hey, it's honest work, right?
It's an honest day's work farming those yields.
I mean, look at Weston, right, Alex? Weston has 2 laptops and fans. He's got all these monitors set up, and he takes them with him everywhere.
Have you seen his yield farmer's tan?
Yes, exactly. But you're right about that, CJ. That's a fair point. It is more of a full-time job than just popping some money into a CD or a savings account, what have you. But people who do have the time and the resources and the wherewithal and the desire, you can find really solid returns and incredible returns that our parents never would have considered being possible on a consistent basis when looking at how they were investing when they were our age.
So this must just be blowing your mind, Alex.
Oh man, come on. Welcome to Trade the Chain. I'm your host, the old man in the room.
So you mentioned you want to talk more about Bitcoin or ETH. Before, I don't know if you noticed on that DeFi pulse, but the amount of value locked in DeFi overnight has basically increased $10 billion from 49 billion to 59 billion. So quite a jump overall, and nothing goes up or down in a straight line perfectly. I think we still have a couple things to be able to rule out in the overall trend before we can call a bottom. But due to all those, Glassnode things you've kind of been referencing, Ryan, it's looking promising, at least in the short term. This is kind of what I've been expecting over the course of this price action that we've seen. We've been able to manage to hold this 35 and almost a 36K level. I think that's really promising. We had a bullish engulfing candle yesterday. We came back down last night and actually back tested 36 and have had a little bit of bullish momentum to be able to actually rally. The thing that I'm worried about if we do rally is this moving average coming down, us getting rejected at the moving average and creating a new lower low below 35K and falling into these lower channels. I think if we do something like that, a lot of people are going to inevitably give up. And at that point, maybe say 3 to 4 weeks, if we had that continued bearish price action, a lot of retail traders would ultimately, I feel like they'd be emotionally broken at that point. And that's where we would see full capitulation. That's like the worst case scenario that I see in my mind. I mean, of course, we could just drop below this level and kind of create that massive bear flag collectively. We could also do that, in which case that would just accelerate the bearish price action even before a reaction rally. I think it's very unlikely we see that. One, because there was so many people liquidated last week that we're just running out of leverage longs in the market because they've all been liquidated. So that's kind of positive, and that's why I still think we're going to get a reaction rally up to possibly 45K, or we got to get past the 42K level first. Very strong resistance, but ultimately these are going to be the critical levels, and this is going to be a lot of resistance that the trend is going to get through. I think the best case scenario for the bulls is that we go up. Obviously we can't go straight up to like 55K. I mean, I think that's rather unlikely. I think the trend needs to put in a new higher low and turn this formerly resistance into new support and experience that role reversal. I think if we do that, it's very, very promising for the overall state in Bitcoin. But there's 2 to 3 scenarios that we really have to plan for here that are probably the most likely. And, as long as you can kind of position yourself optimally to take advantage of either of those 3 scenarios, that's what TA helps us and allows us to do.
I don't often disagree with you, CJ, but I think I'm going to here because because the sentiment has just rebounded when you're looking at the chatter around Bitcoin and when you're looking at the momentum behind it. Sentiment score is up over 70 right now, which is fairly bullish. And I think you're discounting the Wall Street bets effect, right? Like that hasn't gone away, and that's what the sentiment is, right? That's the power of the crowd, the power of the community. And look what happened with GameStop. It went up, and then it dropped. They drove it up again because they could, right? And a lot of these people are now starting to get behind Bitcoin and ETH and other altcoins. Anecdotally, you can see them chatting about it in the forums. And if they decide, no, we think Bitcoin is worth more, they can drive that up a whole lot easier than they drove GameStop up. I mean, just simply looking, and this is a conversation I had earlier in the day with Stephen McClurg at Valkyrie, the digital asset manager. He was talking about the law of large numbers, right? When you have projects or assets that have lower market caps, it's easier to drive them higher than you do with large cap assets, right? GameStop is a large cap asset when you compare it against, say, Bitcoin or other. Actually, no, GameStop is a small cap asset compared to Bitcoin. But he was referencing it between Bitcoin and altcoins and why altcoins are going up exponentially higher than Bitcoin is right now. And I think there is some credence to that. There's no reason why a group of people who decide Bitcoin is worth more than it currently is in the market can't drive it up like they did with GameStop. And I think the sentiment data bears that out.
Yeah, GameStop has a market cap of $13 billion. Bitcoin has a market cap in the trillion.
700.
So they can drive assets like Doge Elon and all of these coins that have no utility whatsoever. But they're not.
I think
they're
they can
not going to drive
higher.
something that is $1 trillion protocol. I mean, that we're at the point now where we're looking at things like ARK and other institutions to actually enter the market. I don't see.
Well, Bitcoin's market cap is only 700 million right now. That's how bad this week has been. But I to your point, though, you're right. It is larger, but I don't think that there's any reason why they can't drive it higher, especially when you factor in the ability for retail investors to use leverage. Whether or not they should be using it is an entirely different discussion. But the fact that they can means that they can drive it higher. Most of these rallies are fueled by retail investors, much more than they're fueled by institutions.
Yeah, but that also means that, like, when you have that retail crowd, they're betting on things like Doge Elon and like all of those coins that have no utility. I'm not talking about Bitcoin and Ether, which will be around for a long time. I'm talking about the things that are in the market for strictly speculation. Like, if we have a massive downturn to, say, 30K or even 25K, I don't see those participants remaining in the market. Maybe not for the short term, but for the long term, I do think they'll come back. But it's a sentiment thing where if you need to reach an absolute bottom, like a significant amount of people have to lose money and have to be really afraid. And I don't know if we've seen that fully yet. We may have, but I think it's too early to rule it out.
I always think more people can get more afraid. And I think, if you're talking about dipping below 30, before a full capitulation happens, it's going to be sad. But hey, let's randomly head into the chats and see what some people are saying. Here's a good one, just off the bottom here. Buy the dip, sell the tip. Do you plan to get involved in Cardano liquidity pools? CJ, Ryan, any thoughts on the Cardano liquidity pools? Okay, and that was your answer, by the dip. I think Rob is going neck deep into those pools. I don't know. Elon Musk tweeted AMC. What I didn't even follow Elon Musk's tweet. I think I turned him off.
Back to the liquidity pools question real quick, Alex. I think I'd have to see what the yields are for Cardano liquidity pools before I make a decision on that.
Yeah, and you're right, Ryan, because a lot of the extreme APY and stuff that's going on with the yield farming and all that while we go through this trough it's a lot of yield arbitrage, right? So you got people just literally spending, a week or so in these pools, and then when the APY is dropping down, they're bouncing around looking for all the other high yield pools. So we'll see.
Like, that does have an effect on the underlying exchange token's price, especially how those mining pools are constructed and altered. Like, when significant liquidity gets pulled out of those pools, typically it doesn't react well in terms of the actual token on the underlying exchange's price. So I think that's definitely something you have to pay attention to if you're going to involve yourself in decentralized exchange protocol tokens.
Yeah,
I mean,
go ahead, Ron.
I was going to say, you can see that in the price action with like Zero, right? As their liquidity pools have wound down, it went from a high of like 44 cents to it's now worth 5 cents a token. So that is a risk you have to consider when looking at holding these types of coins.
Yeah, but I mean, the view can be had that you're going to have that detrimental effect for the exchange's own token, but in the meantime, you're yield farming, you're accumulating mass, and then as that APY comes down to a close or settles in normalized fashion, then that's when you re-engage the token price, and always hopefully see that it goes higher. So, but yeah, you're right. And another one, Ryan, have you re-entered the market? Have you bought any Bitcoin at all?
I was going to, and then at the point where I wanted to buy, that's a great question, by the way, because I did say I would at 35,000. And at the point that it was where I wanted it to be to re-enter, I was stuck on phone calls and did not get to it. So I may have missed the boat on that one. I'm really kind of disappointed in myself for missing that, but I just had a really busy work day.
Okay, all right, fair enough. And then apparently pomade is better than hair gel.
Pomade is the best. Hair gel dries out your hair, thins it, and you lose your hair, and no one wants that. But pomade keeps it nice, thick, and lustrous.
I saw some hair advice being thrown around, so it was interesting.
Trading Nichols knows all about it, as does all Reichsoft in the comments. You guys know what's going on.
A couple things. I'll give out some personal opinions here on a few of these notes. Zero is not going down to zero. Zero is finishing up some big high APY liquidity pools, and they just launched Polygon chain as one of the things. They're doing some tremendous stuff, and I like the team behind it. Another one is, what are your short-term expectations of Stormex? Something, I think I'm just waiting for the market reversal right now. Ryan, CJ, and myself are going to have lunch with Simon Yu up in Miami next week. So we'll get some more clarity on what they're doing and obviously revert to you guys. Let's see. Solid advice on the hair from Digital Asset News. Very cool.
You're in service of the community, in service of the audience.
So this is fun. I'm excited for next week, guys. See see everybody and what's happening. CJ, short term, should we remain calm, cool, and collective?
Well, I mean, you should try to be, but that's easier said than done, depending on certain market movements. Yeah, I mean, you should try to you should never get way overwhelmed. I mean, you should always just try to be objective. And I think the thing that most traders or most beginner traders don't realize, or just market participants in general, is that regardless of whether you're a 25-year seasoned veteran trader or somebody making their first investment, when you see price go up or down, there's going to be a same biological reaction within your neurosynapses. You're either going to feel dopamine and cortisol, a mix of that stress neurotransmitter, and it's highly, highly addictive. And regardless of how old or how experienced you become, you're always going to feel that biological response as a trader taking financial risk. So it becomes a question of being self-aware of how you feel in certain situations. If price goes down 15% and you check your portfolio, like you're supposed to feel bad. And that bad feeling is always going to feel worse than a good feeling feels good, because it's just kind of part of how we're engineered through evolution. A little bit about
what about when your portfolio goes down 50% in a weekend? How do you feel then?
Like
not
drinking,
good, right? You're that dopamine is completely replaced by the horrible one. I forget, but
that feeling, the floor falling out from under you. That's the one.
All right, cool. A couple of notes today. AJ Monty over at marketrebellion.com will be in the ring battling the crypto boys, Monty and CJ, 4 o'clock Eastern time, over at marketrebellion.com. So that'll be interesting. Also, if you didn't catch earlier's episode with CJ and myself on Trinity Trading with Rob over Digital Asset News, go do that. These are opportune times for trading and making those recovery upswing gains. So take a look at that. And then what else? Anything else on the calendar we need to alert people on?
Bitcoin 2021, just to remind those of you who joined late, we'll be in Miami next week. Alex, CJ, Monty, and myself will all be there. CJ and Monty have a Market Rebellion booth. We will be on Podcast Row interviewing people, project heads, founders, exchange executives, all these people, and even doing man on the street interviews like Alex said.
Oh, I gotta mention this. Also, folks, if you do follow VGX and you follow Voyager, they're having their earnings call today after market close. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. And I'm sure Steve and the team have some good news. There's a volatile quarter, and exchanges make money on volatility. So tune into the Voyager earnings call as well.
4 p.m. Eastern.
Is that a 4 p.m. Eastern too?
All post-market earnings calls are, I thought.
Okay, I'm just saying there. I think it's 5, but I'm just saying that falls right in time when CJ and Monty put on the boxing gloves with the Oracle. So I don't know what to watch. And that will be all, folks. We will see you tomorrow. Love you all. Thank you for watching, and have a good evening.
5 p.m. It's at 5 p.m. I was wrong. Sorry about that, guys.
All right.